Givati parking lot excavation. Okay, what we just walked through is part of the underground tunnel, which let's not call it a sewer if we're going to walk through it. We'll call it a drainage tunnel that goes underneath the street. Above us was the main street. The street has been excavated, and hopefully what we're going to do, we're going to backtrack another 150 meters or so, and we'll take a peek at the street. You can't hear me? I'm on. Is the batteries out? Can you hear me now? I'm on. I'm on 11. You're on 11? I'm running out of battery.
They're looking for an exit.
Yeah.
Guide them.
He didn't like it.
Tell them where.
Now, the exit's over there. Now, listen. I told you standing right next to me to give me a meter. Okay, now listen up. What we walk through is open to the public. Okay? There's another section that in a few minutes we'll walk through, and that's from here to the Davidson Center. Yeah. And that's less than 1/5 of what we did, but it's the same experience. From my I would suggest if people want to do the tunnel, do that. And say, multiply this by 5. And if you like, that's, you don't really add anything extra in terms of the experience. So but you should know what's the way. If somebody does, it shouldn't be your first time going through. What I'm hopefully going to take you to is the new excavation that is not open to the public. You can bring VIPs that spend lots and lots of extra money. It's like 1,500 shekel for one group extra to go. Oren's not answering me. Hopefully I'll find out. We'll go there and hopefully they'll allow us in. I know the people that run here as well, but Oren said we have permission, so let's hope. In the meantime, let's just briefly talk about the Givati parking lot excavation. First of all, why is it called the Givati parking lot? It had a very unfortunate beginnings. We know the Kotel is where the army, at least some of the divisions in the army, do their swearing-in ceremonies. And around the year 1990 or so, 1988, there was a swearing-in ceremony of the Givati Brigade. Their buses were parked down here. This was a large parking lot. And a terrorist threw a grenade into a group of Givati soldiers. I think 5 soldiers were killed. And that's got the name, the Givati parking lot. Okay? This was an open parking lot. And the Elad Foundation, who runs the entire site of the city of David, purchased it around the year 2000. And wants to build here a big visitor center. Before they built the visitor center, what they had to do was excavate. So they started around the year 2000. I worked here for 2002, 2003, and they're still working. Originally it was Ronnie Reich and Eli Shukron. Later it was Doron Ben Ami, my suggestion. And later Yana Chechanovitz. Today it's been taken over by other people, meaning this is a huge excavation. What was so amazing about this excavation is that this area, although other than a few corners that were touched by Kathleen Kenyon in the 1960s, it was untouched by anybody else. So it was original archaeology. McAllister didn't touch it, Crowfoot didn't touch it, which meant it was basically a textbook of ancient Jerusalem archaeology. And so there's so many things that you can learn from here. I'm just going to give you 2 or 3 of the highlights, and we're going to move on. The first building, underneath the first, let's say, 5 to 6 meters, was just garbage from the Turkish period. Very interesting, but most of it they cleared away with bulldozers. They got to an area where they had a garden, and a large open garden from the later Arab periods. Then they found an industrial area, pits that were used for tanning, which is something you did outside the city. Underneath that, they found another garden. Underneath that, they found a cemetery, but they don't talk about that. Underneath that, they found this building. This building is from the end of the Byzantine period, and it was an administrative building. Why? What did it do? Domestic administrative. How do you think you know the difference? If you find pots and pans, ovens, it's domestic. If you find large rooms and other things, archives, that it's administrative. So this building, in the first room, they found a pot of gold coins. Amazing gold coins. Okay. Maybe they weren't circulated, and they were from the year 611, and they never were circulated. What we believe, what happened in 614? You remember? The Persian conquest. So somebody brought these from Istanbul, from Constantinople. For some reason, they hid it underground. The Persians came and destroyed it, and nobody knew about it until it was discovered. Underneath that, we have another building. You see where those columns are? Those pedestals? That's part of a beautiful Roman villa from the Roman period. When I studied the Roman period in the classroom, before this was found, we were told the city, Aelia Capitolina, moved that way. But apparently the wealthiest person in the city had a house over here overlooking the beautiful valley. Underneath that, a huge building, you can see it in there, went this way, a little bit diagonal. Huge building, 4,000 meters squared, but it's domestic. And it's got mikvaot, and it's got pottery, and it's got destroyed things from the year 70. So it was built before 70, and it was domestic. But how many people could afford a house that's about 4,000 meters? That's huge. It's a palace. According to Josephus, there was a woman who had a palace in this area. Her name was Helene, the queen of Ariadne. Chadayev. Helene Amalka. So apparently, it could be that her palace, her residence, was over here. Underneath that, they found, over in the corner over there, a humongous structure from the Greek period, from the Hasmonean period, that Doron Ben Ami, who excavated here, thought may have something to do with the Chakra. Have you heard the name Chakra? Chakra was a structure that was built by the Seleucid Greeks that overlooked the temple. How could a building overlook the temple be over here? Question. But the Chakra wasn't just one building, it was part of a whole complex. So Doron felt that it was too big to be just a standalone house, that it had to do with the Chakra building, that some people think was in the southern corner of Temple Mount. I'll let Oren explain more about Chakra. It's way too complicated for right now. Underneath that, they found houses from the Persian period. Underneath that, a little bit of pottery from the 9th and 8th century. They didn't find any 10th or 11th century pottery here. So if the city, it's what? BC. Which means that, what could we find here? The Western Wall of the city of David, if there was one. Understand? And that we still haven't found quite yet. Maybe Crowfoot, who excavated a little bit farther south in the 1920s, found a gate and a wall, but we're not sure whether that's biblical, Nehemiah, Hasmonean, completely open to who it could be. It didn't keep any pottery, and the masonry was too similar. So, and it could be reused. So there's still a little bit of a question of where the wall was, the western wall of the city of David was. It must have been somewhere over here. In all these excavations,
the Central Valley?
This is the valley. Meaning when you say valley today, Tyropian Valley, Central Valley, it's all filled in. What's it filled in with? This.
Ruins.
Now, someone asked a question about geopolitics, and I didn't answer it then.
That's me.
This excavation was stopped for about a year and a half because they issued a petition to the High Court of Justice that this was an illegal excavation. It was petitioned by the people who lived in that house and by other organizations, and it stopped. The court deliberated and said that this was completely legal. It said about the people in the house, well, you built your house without a proper permit, so you shouldn't really make noise.
Complain.
And the end of it, which is basically saying how important these things are, both to Jerusalem's history, Jewish history, and world history, make it important enough that it should be continued. And that was the end of this bagatz. I just ran out of the house again. Oren told me the last minute, but I can, if you want, I can get you the actual document. I keep it with me when I usually visit here. It's now 3 o'clock. We're all pooped. We still have 2 main sites to visit. I know we're all very, very tired, but what we're going to do now, we're going to go back to the entrance of the city of David, take 10 minutes, bathrooms, refresh, cold drink, ice cream, whatever.